My name is Sarah, and I drive a taxi through the empty streets of this sleeping city. Every night I carry strangers to places they call home, but I have been running from mine for 7 years now. 7 years of yellow lights cutting through darkness, 7 years of voices in my back seat telling me stories I wish I could forget. There are secrets that live in the rearview mirror, faces that appear and disappear like ghosts, passengers who climb into my car carrying weights I recognize because I carry them too. Some nights, the silence between us speaks louder than words. Some nights, I see myself in their eyes, lost, broken, searching for something that might not exist anymore. The steering wheel knows my hands better than any lover ever did. Cold leather, warm tears, the same route again and again through streets that never change. I tell myself I am just driving, just working, just surviving. But the truth sits in the passenger seat next to me, waiting, always waiting. Tonight feels different. Tonight, the city whispers my real name, the one I buried along with everything I used to be. There's a story I have never told, not to my passengers, not to myself. A story about the night that changed everything. The night I learned that some doors, once closed, can never be opened again. I am 34 years old, and I have been carrying this weight for too long. Maybe it is time to let someone else hold it for a while. Maybe it is time to tell you what really happened that cold December night when being a taxi driver saved my life and destroyed it at the same time. The first time I saw blood on my steering wheel, I thought it was my own. It was 3 a.m, and the city felt like a graveyard where only the living dead walked. A woman got into my taxi, her hands shaking, her dress torn at the shoulder. She whispered an address I knew too well, the hospital emergency room. I looked at her through my mirror and saw myself 5 years ago. She never spoke during that 20-minute drive, but her silence screamed louder than any words could. Her blood dripped slowly onto my leather seat, drop by drop, like seconds on a broken clock. I wanted to ask if she was okay, but some questions have answers we are not ready to hear. Have you ever sat next to someone's pain and felt completely helpless? When we arrived, she handed me money with trembling fingers, more money than the ride cost, much more. She looked into my eyes and said, "Thank you for not asking." Then she disappeared through those hospital doors, and I never saw her again. But her blood stayed on my steering wheel for months. I could not wash it away. That night changed something inside me. I realized my taxi was not just a car. It was a confession booth on wheels. People climbed in carrying secrets that were too heavy for one person to hold. And somehow, without saying a word, they shared their weight with me. What would you do if strangers trusted you with their darkest moments? The calls always came between midnight and dawn. Those were the hours when people's masks fell off, when desperation wore no makeup. A teenager running from home, a father leaving his family, a mother choosing between rent money and medicine for her sick child. Each passenger carried a different story, but they all had the same look in their eyes, the look of someone drowning. I learned to read faces in my rearview mirror like some people read books. The way someone's shoulders dropped when they thought no one was watching. The way their voice cracked when they gave me an address that meant goodbye forever. The way they counted money twice, hoping it would somehow become enough. These small gestures broke my heart every single night. One December evening, an old man got in my taxi. He was dressed in his best suit, carrying a single rose. He asked me to drive to the cemetery. When I asked which section, he smiled and said, "The one where my wife has been waiting for me for 10 years. His hands were steady, but his voice was not. He talked about her during the entire drive, as if she was still alive. When we reached the cemetery gates, he paid me and said, "Some promises take a lifetime to keep." I watched him walk into the darkness, carrying that rose like it was the most precious thing in the world. I waited in my car for 2 hours, but he never came back. That night, I understood that love does not die. It just finds different ways to breathe. Have you ever loved someone so much that even death could not separate you? The worst night of my life started like any other. Rain was falling hard, turning the streets into rivers of neon light. A woman called for a taxi to pick up her daughter from a party. Just a simple ride home, she said, nothing complicated. But sometimes the simplest requests carry the heaviest consequences. Sometimes helping someone means destroying yourself. When I arrived at the address, I found Emma, 17 years old, barely standing, her makeup running down her cheeks like black tears. She smelled like alcohol and fear. She climbed into my back seat and gave me her home address, but something in her voice made me look closer. Her hands were shaking, and not from the cold. What would you do if you suspected someone was in danger, but you had no proof? Halfway home, Emma started crying. Not the soft crying of sadness, the desperate crying of someone who had lost something they could never get back. She whispered, "I can't go home like this. My mom will know." I pulled over and turned to face her. In that moment, I had to choose between following the rules or following my heart. Sometimes there is no right choice, only the choice you can live with. I made a decision that changed both our lives forever. Instead of taking her home, I drove Emma to my small apartment. I gave her clean clothes, made her coffee, and let her sleep on my couch. I called her mother and lied. I told her Emma was safe at a friend's house. That lie would haunt me for years, but the truth would have destroyed a family. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone and protecting yourself? The next morning, Emma told me her story. She had been drugged at the party. 3 boys had hurt her in ways that no one should ever be hurt. She was afraid to tell her parents because they had warned her not to go to that party. She felt like it was her fault, like she deserved what happened. Listening to her words felt like swallowing broken glass. How do you comfort someone whose innocence has been stolen? I made Emma a promise that day. I promised to help her report what happened, to stand by her side when she told her parents, to drive her to every court hearing, every therapy session, every moment she needed someone to believe her. That promise cost me everything I had: my savings, my job, my relationship. But some promises are worth more than the price we pay to keep them. The legal battle lasted 2 years. 2 years of Emma crying in my back seat after court hearings. 2 years of her mother blaming me for not bringing her daughter home that first night. 2 years of people saying I should have minded my own business. But Emma fought, and she won. Those 3 boys went to prison, and Emma learned to smile again. Watching her graduate from high school was the proudest moment of my life. Today, Emma is 23 years old. She is studying to become a lawyer, specializing in cases like her own. She still calls me sometimes just to say thank you. Last week, she sent me a photo of herself in her graduation gown with a message that said, "You saved my life when I thought it was over." Sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes choosing to care about a stranger's pain is the only choice that makes us human. What would you do if helping someone meant risking everything you had? Would you still choose love over safety? Some stories never really end. They just find new ways to live inside us, like seeds planted in soil we did not know existed. When I look at my steering wheel now, I no longer see blood or tears. I see hands that chose to hold instead of letting go. I see a mirror that reflected not just faces, but souls learning to trust again. Every night when I start my engine, I carry Emma's courage with me, and the courage of every passenger who climbed into my car carrying more weight than their hearts could bear alone. The city looks different now. The same dark streets, the same neon lights cutting through rain, but something has shifted. Where I once saw only shadows, I now see possibilities. Where I once heard only silence, I now hear whispers of hope. My taxi has become more than a vehicle. It has become a bridge between despair and dawn, between the person someone was and the person they are becoming. Each passenger teaches me that broken does not mean worthless, that scared does not mean weak. 3 days ago, Emma called me again. She told me she had just helped another young woman report her assault, just like we did together years ago. Her voice was steady, strong, filled with the kind of peace that only comes from turning pain into purpose. She said, "You showed me that strangers can become family, that choosing to care is never a mistake." As I listened to her words, I realized that the girl who once cried in my back seat had become the woman who now dries other people's tears. Tonight, when I turn off my engine and walk to my apartment, I will carry this truth with me. Love is not always gentle, but it is always worth it. Sometimes the most important choice we make is to stay when everyone else walks away. Sometimes saving someone else is the only way to save ourselves. If this story touched something inside you, if it reminded you that we all carry invisible scars and invisible strength, then maybe you understand why I keep driving through these dark streets. Maybe you know why some journeys never truly end. They just find new passengers to carry home. Please stay with me for more stories like this one. Like this video if Emma's courage inspired you. Share it if you believe in the power of choosing love over fear. Subscribe if you want to hear more whispers from the heart of humanity. Because every story we share together is another light in the darkness, another hand reaching out to say, "You are not alone."